What's up, guys? We are back with another Cosmic Legions review, taking a look at a PowerCon first release Masters of the Universe tribute figure. This guy's going to show up in Outpost Zaxxius as well, but we have our first look at SSKUR'GE. Pretty clever wordplay there, because a SSKUR'GE is a type of whip or a lash, which is who this guy is a tribute to, Whiplash. He is a lot of Kragnar too, and I'm really happy with that, because while this guy was very much not on my radar, I really like Whiplash, and I also really like Kragnar. So we've got him here as a result in a much larger box. You've got him there in the window. You've got that hologram look down there on the bottom with the dragon head. One spine's going to give you his bio, the other spine's going to give you a write-up on Outpost Zaxxius, and then the back of this box is going to give you cross-sell for all of Wave 1, along with our 2 Motu tributes this year. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Cosmic Legions PowerCon Motu Tribute SSKUR'GE figure. So this guy is, again, the tribute for Whiplash, first release at PowerCon this year, but then also in the upcoming Outpost Zaxxius wave. And he is a combination of 2 figures, Mythic and Cosmic. So this is the base body shared by Kragnar from Cosmic, and a Rakagor in the upcoming Poxus wave on the Mythic side, but then heads, tails, and then an armor that's shared across both figures, mix and match to make this green dragon guy. And this, I'll note, is not how he is put together in the box. You have to put the tail on and swap this head, but since this is how he has been most heavily advertised, I wanted to talk about this version first. Otherwise, we're just talking about, well, a green Kragnar, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at face value, but we got to talk about a dragon head too. So as far as moving this guy around, he's still very Kragnar-ish, which is to say really good. That's probably my favorite figure in Cosmic so far. And a lot of that still translates. So the head is on a nice big ball peg, really good range up and down, but the tilt is really good as well, side to side. It's not necessarily as good as the Kragnar head because that head is slightly smaller, but it still works well. And we have an articulated jaw here, which I'm really happy with. Looks great, moves really well, great range of motion on that also. So you can open it super wide if you want. Arms out at the shoulder, they rotate. We've got our single jointed swiveling elbow. You've got rotation hinges at your wrist. Now the torso on Kragnar is a 2.0 style torso, but of course he's an ogre, so this is new territory still. So you've got a diaphragm cut. It allows for swivel up top. Really, really nice tilt side to side though. Some forward and backward. You're gonna hear that squeak though. And then you've also still got your ball peg down at the waist, but I will say that's sort of like the deluxe Oleg Thygar figure where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on down there. The same kind of situation is here too. So you can swivel some. Most of your rotation is probably going to be up at your torso, your diaphragm cut. I'd watch out. I often tend to pop this apart while I'm kind of articulating him heavy-handedly, so watch out. You might pop that apart. It just pegs back together, though. But there is a belt, there is multiple layers of soft goods, and the tail actually lives underneath the torso and above the hips. So there's a whole bunch of stuff wedged in there, so it does get in the way just a little bit. Your legs go out about that far. They kick forward. Not much backward, though. You do have your thigh twist. Single jointed knee with rotation, but it's not a 90 degree. It's one of the few limiting areas on this figure. And then down at the ankles, we've got our rotation, you've got rocker, and then you've of course got your hinges down here as well. But he does have a tail, and this thing's kind of weird. I was really curious how this was going to work because I guess I had never seen anybody do it or seen it demoed on any live streams or anything like that so far, or I'd just forgotten maybe. There's actually a little hook on the top of the tail that slips around the ball peg shaft inside the figure. So it can swivel a little bit as it sort of shimmies around that, but it doesn't really have anything in or out. It's not a ball peg. It's not like the tails on any of the feline characters on the Mythic side. And then it has a cut in the middle for some swivel. That's about it. It's not the most dynamic thing, but it's also movable enough that I'm okay with it. It also doesn't necessarily have to rest on your surface either. Like, it's not touching the table right now. And it doesn't really seem to impede his balance that much either. It does seem to be just light enough, I suppose, that it's not going to pose a problem, no pun intended. But otherwise, I do think he moves really well. Again, you know, Kragnar is probably my favorite figure in the first wave of Cosmic. A lot of that does come down to how well he moves, specifically the head and this torso. And of course, it translates really well to SSKUR'GE also. So if you're familiar with that figure, you really know what you're getting into with this one. And I'd say, you know, easily the best moving of the ogre-size figures in Legions in general. Visually is where I think this guy's going to shine for a lot of folks, and I'm not so sure that's much of a stretch. big lime green dragon guy on your shelf is definitely going to draw some focus, and he's going to be exciting to take a look at. And I already like a lot of the base components of this figure, so it's not a stretch to think that I'm going to like this guy as well. Kragnar is awesome. I love everything about that figure, and this guy is more of the same. He's just slightly different. So he's lime green. Of course, Whiplash is also lime green, so you've got that. But they're pulling in a lot of different things to make this guy work in the way that he's working. So Whiplash isn't always shown as being this hulking monster. He is sometimes, and I really like that. And I'm really happy that they decided to go this route to make him. I say that not knowing how they could have made this figure with existing parts otherwise, but I'm happy this is a version of a Whiplash tribute figure that we're getting. So this utilizes, again, the Kragnar Arachagore body parts. It's got Kragnar's upper armor, and that includes the ring on the back still, so you've still got that. And of course, it's done up in green because Whiplash had a green torso with no armor, so it sort of keeps that color consistent. He has the remaining armor from Arachagore, although this centerpiece right here is different on Arachagore. And Whiplash had an orange belt and blue furry loincloth, so you do have that, which is literally fur soft goods. And you've got this sort of scaly reptilian piece down here also, which is why I mentioned he's got a bunch of stuff cinched between his waist. And then you've got the blue shin guards, which mimic his blue ankles and calves in the toy line. And then I guess to keep things consistent, we've got blue bracers up here. Whiplash doesn't have armor on his wrists or anything, but it helps the figure sort of look a little bit more complete rather than having bare arms. Although, like I said, those are removable, so you can take them off if you want him to be a little bit more Whiplashy. I really like this mix of armor, though. It's slightly techno-y up top, but then it's very barbarian at the bottom. But I think it works. The orange and the blue on that armor, of course, orange and blue go together really well, so they look good. And then this green armor does kind of blend into the figure really well, specifically on the torso, and it looks a little bit more like Whiplash actually not having much there to begin with. He is, of course, still Kragnar, so he's got the removable pieces on the back that allow you to pop other arms in. Now, he doesn't come with 4 arms, but if you wanted to use arms from another Scourge, you can do that just like you do with Kragnar to have a 4-arm dragon or a 4-arm green Kragnar if you use that other head. So I do like the fact that that still exists. Of course, it makes perfect sense that that is still there since it is the same body, but it's nice to see that it's, cohesive across all of those figures. If you wanted to pop some orange arms in there in the interim, I suppose you can do that. Now I'm going to bring in Whiplash from the Classics line just to compare real quick to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Of course, the sizing is very, very different, but this guy was also done by the Horseman, so there's definitely a relationship there, but it gives you an idea of those colors. So the green torso, the orange and blue belt, and then the blue down at the feet. This is the 2000X style head. I don't remember where the vintage head is at this point, but that's the 2000X style, and of course, kind of looks similar as well with that ridge across the top of the head, and he also has a little bit of a horn going there. One thing I thought was kind of cool is when going back to look at this guy, his tail is just a swivel. It's not the same thing. His tail is like his entire back, but his tail is just a swivel also, which is literally the same thing here. I don't know if they took inspiration from that when doing anything like this. I mean, it might have been in the backs of their minds when creating this tail system, but it is similar. It's reminiscent at the very least. So that's kind of cool. Whether it has anything to do with it or not, they're very similar. And then, of course, we have this absolutely gnarly head sculpt up here to round him out. And I'm so happy with this. It looks so good. There is, just almost too much sculpting up there. I know that's hard to say. Too much. It doesn't make any sense. But this head just looks absolutely ridiculous with this opening jaw. You've got that gaping maw with all of these super jagged teeth. The paint in there has got a glossy look to it to make it look kind of wet and nasty. And then there's just a bunch of varying shades up here on the actual head. So you've got the lime green for the majority of it. That ridge on the top of the head is a darker green, and then the spines coming off the back of the cheek area is actually a different color. It's got sort of like a gray-brown undertone to it underneath of the greens. And then you've got the red eyes, red and yellow eyes, I should say, just like Whiplash does. So there is a lot of influence here for sure when it comes to the color palette. These were a lot of intentional, smart choices to make this guy look really unique. A big space dragon is cool on its own, but of course, when you get these guys side by side again, it's quite obvious where some of this stuff comes from, and I really like the idea of this, not Whiplash, being so big and hulking, and he's going to look really, really awesome on the shelf with Kragnar, and then down the road when we finally get Poxus with Arachagore and have all 3 of them together. Now, as far as size comparisons go, let's start with other cosmic stuff. Now, I've got Kragnar here, just not necessarily for size, but because they are, of course, very similar, to give you an idea of what they look like next to each other. And then we've got our other PowerCon exclusive, Operative 83 over here on the right for a 1.0 size comparison. Let's pull him aside. Let's do a Super 7 Turtle. There is Donnie. Let's pull Kragnar aside. And let's do a Mezco. Here is Conan. Let's do a Marvel Legend. Here is Banshee for, a standard Hasbro kind of figure. Let's do a Figuarts. Here is Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta from Dragon Ball GT specifically. Let's do a couple other bigger figures. Here is the Super 7 Ultimate Buzzsaw from Silverhawks. And then here is the Deluxe Masterverse Too Bad from Mattel. So this guy is huge. I mean, if you've got experience with the Ogre scale figures on either side of the line, Cosmic or of course more specifically Mythic, you know what to expect. He's bigger than just about anything else in the Cosmic or the Mythic Legions line, and he's going to scale relatively large with the majority of your 1/10, 1/12 action figures. Now, as far as accessories goes, we have a pretty solid spread here. Scourge has hands, he's got weapons, he's got a head, and I guess you can include the tail if you'd like, because if you want to go the Kragnar, repaint route, a full-on repaint of Kragnar, you don't necessarily need that tail, so it's extra. And this is, of course, our extra head sculpt. So this is one of the two Kragnar heads that he came with. This is the more docile of the two, so you get the dragon head, and you get one of the Kragnar heads here, of course, done up in green, so you've got that lime green with the dark sort of spines that run down the top. And you've got his super, super wide set eyes. I really like the Kragnar design from start to stop, so I'm really happy with this one. I like the idea of being able to just, put a second Kragnar on my shelf, whether he's green or not. So that's pretty fun. I'm happy with that. And then we do get 2 extra sets of hands. So he's got style posy hands on him in the box. You get a set of gripping hands. Of course, the set is 2. And then you also are going to get a set of fists as well. So 6 total hands. Now, he also comes with weapons. And the weapons are kind of interesting because while this figure is a combination of Mythic and Cosmic stuff, the weapons are all Mythic. So if you're familiar with the Ogres, you know what to expect with some of this stuff. And then some of the weapons are just regular figure accessories too, which is also kind of odd. So we get one of these big, like the big bladed club kind of thing. So this is done up in a color that's kind of like an orangey bronze color. Of course, it matches his belt here. And this can come apart. So the top comes off, and then the bottom comes off as well, and you can add an extension to it. So again, if you're familiar with the Ogres, you're familiar with this, and you end up with something that is super, super tall and super long. So you've got an option here for different sizes. I mean, this thing is literally taller than the figure, but you've got this big quad-bladed bludgeoning tool that you've got there. And then we get 2 extra little things that are meant to combine into one. So we get the end of the trident, and again, we've seen this on the Mythic side, and you get 1/2 of one of the dual-bladed curved sword weapons. And this is meant to go together. It's meant to peg in like this. So you have something that is admittedly very weird looking, but it has a basis in reality in terms of Whiplash's weapon, because it's meant to look something like this. This is what comes with the Classics figure, and it is a goofy looking thing. It's really weird, curved blade with a tri-tip blade on the other side. So they're trying to replicate this weapon. When you get this figure and you're not a Motu guy maybe, and you have no idea what this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to give you a weird trident curved blade weapon as best they can with existing parts. So you get 1/2 of a trident and 1/2 of this thing. And it is a goofy looking weapon, I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure that I'm ever going to really use it all that much, but I applaud them for this because as weird of a thing as this is, they did manage to find something that worked. So he comes with a pretty solid array here. Again, it's kind of everything. A head, you get hands, you get these goofy weapons, and then of course, if you want to include it, you also get a tail to round this guy out. So yeah, this figure is awesome. There's really no way to say it otherwise. I would go so far as to say that this is the better of the two, but that's all personal preference. I think both of these tributes are just rad in general, but Scourge is awesome. I really like the idea of making the Whiplash tribute into this big hulking character, because that's not an unseen thing for Whiplash in Motu history. He's oftentimes shown as being really big. He's oftentimes shown as not being big, but it also works really well here in this combination of parts. It gives us an opportunity to get another dragon head in the line. We'll get that blue one with Arachagor, but it's nice to get this one now. It's a mix of great parts with that armor from Kragnar and from Arachagor. And then, of course, green dragon or green Kragnar just is awesome on face value. And then, of course, if you want to make a 4-armed version, you still have the capabilities of doing that if you get 2 of these guys. So there's a lot of fun to be had with this figure. If you want the Dragon Man, or if you just want a green Kragnar, you're in business here. So that's going to do it for this look at the 4 Horsemen Cosmic Legions PowerCon Motu Tribute SSKUR'GE. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.